What's up? It's Mr. J. I'm going to talk today about I thought I was going to say pizza, but it's probability. I'm going to talk about probability. So, in grade 4, there's a couple things about probability that you need to do. There's kind of like 4 ways that teachers usually talk about probability. 4 sort of things that they bring in. So 1, spinner. Borrowed this one from my daughter's Disney Spot Them game. Spinners, okay? Actually, I shouldn't have done spinners first. I should have done coins first, but I didn't bring a coin because I don't have any. But coins. Coins are the easiest thing to do probability. Why? I'll let you think about that, and I'll tell you in a minute. Okay, then usually spinners. Usually you start with maybe a spinner that doesn't have quite as many options as this one. This one got, 12 options on it. So it's a pretty complicated spinner. And dice. Okay, I got a big dice. I got all kinds of little dice here. I, in fact, have in my house, I didn't bring this from school, I've got a Yoda cup that is filled with dice of different kinds because that's just the kind of guy I am. All right, there's what is that, a 10-sider? I got them all, baby. All right, so let's talk about, today we're going to talk about 2. So we're going to talk about spinners and dice a bit today, okay? But basically, when you think about probability, you should really be thinking about it almost on a number line, okay? So if we think about a number line, what a number line is, just with numbers, okay, numbers go on forever and ever, you know, in both directions actually, but anyways, they never stop, and generally you put the numbers you're working with on there. So I might, you know, start at 0 and then maybe I end at 100, and then I can sort of imagine where numbers in that number line would be. Like, for example, 50 would be right in the middle, and maybe number 97 would be, you know, right around there or whatever, okay? So that's basically what a number line is. Now for probability, a number line is going to look a little bit different, because probability, actually, all the numbers are in between 0 and 1. What are you talking about, Mr. J? Hang with me, dog. Yeah, all the chance of something happening. That's what probability is. It's the likelihood or the chance that something happens, okay? So if I was to roll this dice, and it's just a regular dice, there's no tricks, okay? Regular 6-sided dice. If I was to roll that, you know, something's going to happen. Okay, what's going to happen? I don't know. Maybe a 3 comes up. Maybe a 6 comes up. Okay, but everything that could happen is in between 0 and 1. And here's what I mean by that. 0, instead of using the number, I'm going to write the word impossible. Okay, so 0 is impossible. So if I roll this dice, the likelihood that dragon comes up is impossible. There is no dragon option on this dice. It can't happen. Okay, if I roll this dice, the chance that 12 happens is impossible. There is no 12 on this dice. If I roll 2 dice, that's a different story, okay? But there's no 12, okay? Then we've got 1, and I'm going to change that to certain, okay? And that's generally the term mathematicians use, but you can think of it as like for sure or a different word, but whatever. It means it's going to happen, okay? So when I roll this die, the chance that a number comes up is certain. No matter what happens, I'm going to get a number, okay? I could also say it's certain that I'm going to get a number between 1 and 6, okay? Because that's also true. I'm going to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. But it's certain I'm going to get a number 1 to 6, okay? And then everything else in the middle here is other words, okay? And generally we kind of put them in order. I mean, you know, impossible and certain are really the key words in there, okay? Impossible meaning no chance, not going to happen, forget about it, okay? And certain meaning, yes, no matter what you do, no matter how I roll this dice, a number will come up, okay? There's no way that I can do it and get a square, you know? Oh my God, I got dragon! You know, it's always going to be a number, okay? So that's certain. Now kids sometimes get a little snarky. What if it lands on its edge or whatever? Okay, it's a normal dice. It's got little rounded corners. It's always going to be a number, okay? Oops, that wasn't a good roll. Okay, so impossible, certain, and then in the middle you have some other words. Usually in the middle, you can kind of say equal, or sometimes teachers are finicky and they want you to say equally likely, okay? Whatever. I'm not that finicky, but you get the idea. Equally likely, okay? So then that would go sort of here on our number line. So I'm just going to write equal here, because you know what? That's how I roll. Okay, so equal. And on my dice example, something that would be equal would be even or odd. Okay, so the numbers on the dice are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I could say it's equally likely that I roll an even number or an odd number, right? Because we've got odd 1, odd 3, odd 5, and we got equal to, even to, evil 4, even 4, and even 6. Okay, so if I roll the dice, I have an equally likely chance of getting an even or odd. In that case, I got odd. In that case, I got odd. I got odd. Oh, I got odd. Oh my goodness. I got even. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in reality, it's equally likely. Okay, and then we've got, more likely and less likely. And all that means is, it's somewhere in between the middle. So let's look at less likely. Less likely means it's between impossible, never going to happen in a bazillion years, and being like half and half, 50-50, equally likely. So I could, in my dice example, I could say, it is less likely that I roll a 1, right? I could roll the dice a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to get a 1 sometimes, okay? But it's not going to happen half the time. It's not equally likely that I get a 1, but it's also not certain, and it's not more likely, it's not impossible. It's less likely, okay? It's less likely to get a 1 than any of the other numbers, okay? And then we go to more likely. It is more likely that I will get a number that isn't 1 than 1, right? If I roll the dice a whole bunch of times, I'll get 1 sometimes, but it's more likely I'm going to get a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I mean, obviously, right? Okay, and that's sort of the spectrum of words that we use to talk about probability, okay? And on the probability line, I could put less likely, anywhere in here, right? Less likely is anywhere between impossible and equal, and then more likely is in between equal and certain, right? Even something like, I will see a star explode. It's not impossible. It's very, 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 very unlikely. It's like, it might be like right there, like in human history, how many people have seen stars explode, but it's not impossible. You got the right telescope at the right time, it's very unlikely to see a star explode, but, and then same with more likely. It might be more likely like, I get a 1, 2, 3, or 4 when I roll a dice. That's more likely than getting a 5 or 6, but it also might be something that's like almost certain, right? Tomorrow I'll go outside, because most days I go outside. Now there might be a day where I can't get outside, it's raining, or I hurt my ankle or something, but almost every day of my whole life I've gone outside at some point, right? Okay, so let's look at spinners for a minute. Now, this is not a great spinner to use as an example because there's so many choices on it, okay? But it is a good example in a different way, and that is this is what we would call a fair spinner. And what I mean by that is that you have just as much chance as getting any of these options as any other. So I got the blue Mickey. Okay, and if I spin it again, I got the blue Mickey again. I got the 2 on the clock. That's actually bad in the game. But the point is that it is a fair spinner because each spot on the spinner is equally sized. Okay, and I'll show you an unfair spinner in a second. Oh, back to the coin. Why is the coins the easiest thing to do probability with? Because there's only 2 options, right? The dice has 6, the spinner, in this case, has 8. The coin's only got 2. Anyways, so that's a fair example of a fair spinner. As I spin, it is equally likely to get any one of these options, okay? An unfair spinner, then what would that look like? Let's draw one. Okay, now imagine I draw a perfect circle, which I'm not going to. That's not terrible. Okay, and I split it. There's a couple ways. I'm going to make 2 unfair spinners here because I'm just feeling very unfair today. So this one, I'm going to split evenly. Now I know that's not perfect, but imagine that, I took my time, I got my measure, I got a protractor, I made it perfect. Imagine that those are actually equally sized, okay? So on this other one, well, actually let's do this one first. So here's my fair spinner that I'm actually going to make unfair. So I say, here's my spinner, it's equally sized. I get out my protractor, I prove it to you, and I say, would you like to play my game? You've got a 1 in 3 chance of winning. What do you think? And you say, well, okay, whatever, I'll give it a whirl. And then I color in the squares. So I'm going to make it unfair now. Okay? I say you get green, you lucky duck. You get the green. If you get green, you win. Money green. Bling, bling, bling. And I'll get orange. And if I get orange, then you got to pay me. Okay, so pretty fair still, right? Oh, I forgot to color this one in. Okay, now, right? You spotted it. That's an unfair spinner. Even though, let's assume these were equally sized, it has become unfair because I've given myself 2 sections and I've given you 1 section. Okay, so that would be an unfair spinner. Here's another way to draw an unfair spinner. I'm gonna split this into 2 parts. Okay, and so there'll be 2 parts. You'll have the green part. I'll have the orange part. And if you get green, you win. And if I get orange, I win. Sounds pretty fair, right? 2 parts. I'm gonna split it. Now notice I didn't say I was going to split it fairly, okay? So instead of splitting it down the middle, I go ahead and do, one of these. There you go. There's the green section, so you get 1 part. And I also get the same amount. I get 1 part too. So we each have 1 part, so it's fair. So give me your money, right? Obviously, that's another unfair spinner. So that's 2 ways to make an unfair spinner. How do you make a fair spinner? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? When you split up your spinner, let's try it 4 ways here. When you split up your spinner, you make each part equally sized. Okay, that's the only way to make a fair spinner. Now you don't have to do. Well, let's bring in 2 other colors here, but you get the idea, right? So if I have, that kind of looks like the other color, but this is, believe it or not, that's a red instead of an orange. And then let's go with, how about this blue? Okay, so now my spinner has 4 equally sized parts. Okay, and that would be a fair spinner. All right, dice, same thing. As long as your dice has 6 numbers on it and they are different, then your game is going to be fair, right? So some ways you can trick people with dice, if you want to be nasty like that, is you could make a special dice of your own. Let's see if I got one here. You could get a blank die like that and put your own numbers on it. Oh, there's something on there. And then you could say like, oh, even odd, let's play even odd. But then when you put your numbers on the dice, you put on 1, you skip 2 maybe. You go 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that way you get odd, 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 and they only get 2 evens, right? So there are ways to make dice games unfair as well if you have your own specialty dice, okay? So that's just a couple ideas about dice and spinners, fair and unfair. Okay, and there you go.